Hi, everyone. Today's episode is about what it means to be kind. And in particular, we want to talk about whether or not mushrooms make you kinder. And we also want to discuss what it means when people are not kind. How can you recognize what type of behavior you should not accept and what to do about it? So, Dawa, uh, shoot. Do you want to start
Yeah,
the conversation?
yeah, I can start. I think, did you mention that you read somewhere that magic mushrooms, the psychedelic ones, they give you an experience of more oneness. They let people kind of transcend their own ego a little bit, and that can result in having more kindness, both towards yourself, as towards other people, as towards the planet and all the creatures we share our planet with.
Yes, I
So,
read this
yeah.
research article actually that the documents that people after having taken mushrooms, they become more nature oriented. They're more preoccupied about preserving nature. Um, Now there may be a lot of research articles that demonstrates and says different things, but at least there exists articles that specifically documents that people get more sensitive to nature and want to preserve nature more.
And
And
I heard there's a similar effect for people who have had like near death experiences.
yeah, interesting. Yes, but I think, there's I haven't looked in deeply into the research about this. I haven't done any literature review. Um, but there are always some articles that have documented some effects of these what can I call it, drugs or medicine,
Psychedelics, plant
this
medicine.
medicine
Yeah.
psychedelics. There are a lot of articles that document that these medicines or psychedelics, they have positive effects on addiction, for example. That's pretty clear that they
Yeah.
have positive effects on addiction. So, but then, I meet people that say that there are no effects from even yoga or psychedelics or anything on that can like document that people get better. And you can always see that people use these substances, but they don't seem to get better.
Mm.
So it's hard to talk only from research documentation. I think it's also interesting to, in addition to talking about what research has documented, to talk about what we have observed ourselves and what we have experienced ourselves,
Yeah.
because yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. It reminds me a bit of, I think it's from Ken Wilber, who says that we have um these stages of care. Like it's like how much empathy we have. And so it starts with kind of empathy for self, which can be kind of egoic. We mostly want to have our own needs met. And once we grow out of that, we go to this more uh, us stage, like the people I know, the people of my group. Let's meet the needs of those people. But that's also a bit of a tribal mindset because it's often us versus them. So my group is the good group, it's in group versus out group. And then he says, like, if you expand that level of compassion even further, then you go to all of humanity. So from us, it goes to all of us. And instead of tribal, you go to more world centric. And then the last stage, I think he says, is where you go from towards a kind of cosmic stage. So you don't only recognize humanity, but that there's probably a lot of other beings out there as well. And they also all try to, survive and thrive. And maybe mushrooms and near-death experiences can kind of trigger this psychological growing up
Yes.
by expanding your consciousness, getting to see things from another viewpoint.
Yes.
So yeah,
And this sounds a little bit also like our love and kindness meditations that we have done. So meditation also might bring you closer to that unconditional love for all there is.
yeah,
Um, Yes. I think like one paradox is that you need to love yourself first, like put your mask on first before you're able to love other people and beings unconditionally. Because if not, you sort of your love will turn into something that is transactional, or
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, it makes sense.
yeah,
Or
because
you kind
like
of you
yeah.
you deplete yourself maybe. And I guess maybe here it's like, what is love, right? Is love, do you really care about yourself, or have you just been trained to people please out of safety? So this is also like,
Yes.
are you really compassionate towards yourself, or did you kind of need to ignore your own feelings and needs so you would survive growing up?
Yes, and this is so counterintuitive, because you think that the people that are so caring about everyone and does everything for them, that they are super kind, but if they're not kind to themselves, it's a problem in the end,
Yeah.
because they'll turn bitter also, when they realize that uh, they only give and they don't give anything in return. So it's the importance of setting those boundaries and seeing that you are worthy of love and attention, and actually take that responsibility to safeguard your own person.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very interesting. I think it has a bit to do, I don't know if the word is sovereignty, like people need to understand that if people's needs are generally met, how I understand it, then people become more generous and kind automatically. But it needs to be real. So you really need to feel that, okay, yeah, mine met. And then you can kind of, you want other people to have their needs met also, because then the people around you are happier. And maybe there can be a bit of a difference there. But do you have any tips on that, on what people could do if they suffer with this problem of either only care about themselves and not about others, or they kind of seem to only care about others and not they kind of forget themselves? Like both seem imbalanced.
Yes. I don't want to, tell people to, like, it's about the deep introspection and how can you succeed with that deep introspection. And for some people, it's easier to fall into come into this meditative state. Maybe some people can use yoga or just walk in the long walks, hikes, where you can only by yourself, where you can just calm your brain down. Some people need more powerful tools. Uh, I don't know, like when we met at this retreat, my first experience was, just deep love for first of all for myself. It's like it was so amazing, because I just felt like you're good the way you are. You don't have to improve all the time. You're just you don't have to do anything. You are, uh you're worth loving the way you are. Like, it seems like a cliche when I tell you, but so the thing is, um you actually experience this. I
Yeah.
experienced it, and it made me love everyone in that retreat, including you.
Yes, I would.
The ones that were there, I just like love them.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
everyone else, of course,
yeah. But it's a good expansion, right? You start with the self, and then the
Yeah,
whole
yeah.
group, and then the world. Yeah, no, that's beautiful. And yeah, and did that stay for you? Like once you had that experience, did you feel you could kind of keep it with you going out of the retreat?
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
2 weeks. And then the thing is, I remember it. I remember it, but I don't know, I no longer experience it the way I did. So I think that's the difference, you know? I think you can't, like, you can keep going on these retreats to keep that feeling, but that's not viable. So you sort of have to work on yourself through other means, through yoga, through meditation, through introspection, through therapy, through talking to friends about things like this. because it opens the doorway to your emotions and your subconscious mind. It
Yeah.
sort of makes you see things that you don't see otherwise. It's why I've been thinking that everyone should do this, but then on the other side, kind of, I don't know. I think it works different for different people. Like,
I
I
think
think
people
that,
that are called should definitely do it. And
yes,
I mean, I don't think it probably would be healthy for society if, like, once a year people would do a mushroom retreat and then or you do like 3 or 4 different retreats. Like, one of is a mushroom retreat, another one is an ayahuasca retreat, maybe a
yeah,
mescaline retreat.
yeah,
Then, because it's also interesting that you connect to these larger consciousnesses of kind of the mushroom, the fungal realm, the plant realm. I mean, I think it could be very interesting because people experience something transcendental to the ego. They experience that, hey, I can connect to this different intelligence and there's an interaction going on. And it teaches me things. How is that even possible? How does that even work, right? How can I connect to this plant consciousness or mushroom consciousness? And how can it teach me about myself? How can it teach me about my family relations, my dynamics, my fears, my repressed material? Like,
yeah.
how does it work?
And it definitely does that. If you use this medicine to go to introspect, not to go party, because you can do that also, then you actually, you see through it is called the default mode network, the part of
Yeah,
the brain
I
that
think so,
makes
yeah.
you, it makes you be able to focus, you know, drive a car. You should not drive a car on LSD, for example. I wouldn't advise it because then you sort of, you see more of the world. You see, um, you don't concentrate on the things that you usually have trained your brain to concentrate on. And if your brain has stifled in a negative pattern, that's the way you see the world. That's
Yeah.
why it's maybe useful to go through a retreat because it will make you see other things, but then it can also be hard. They say that
Yeah.
the bad trips are the good trips, and I definitely have seen. I don't know how much I should go into my own experiences, but it has guided me, and I have got very specific uh, messages about what I should do, and I've been doing that. And it's been very healthy for me. I've taken up like a yoga practice and a lot of other things, exploring my creativity. And I don't think I would have done that otherwise. And
No.
also, it was hard for me to go into malls. Too much plastic. I can't stand plastic plants anymore.
That's
It's like,
amazing. Yeah.
it wasn't like that before, but I've interviewed others about the same thing. And they said like, okay, I went to this retreat because and I prepared. I was like, I know, I mean, I've been thinking about my childhood and everything. And then the guy said, what came out of that retreat was that I'm never going to use plastic ever again.
Interesting.
So you never
That's
know what you're gonna get. You don't know.
no.
You can plan as much as you want. It's not what you're gonna get.
No, no, it's very interesting, right? It just
Yeah.
shows you what your next step is in your kind of evolution of consciousness or
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So what I
yeah.
needed, that first retreat was probably just to love myself, get that good feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah, that
then
it's in there.
before it's sort of
And
uh,
do you know, if I can ask, like, do you know why that was so difficult for you to feel? Was that something you just never connected with, not in childhood, or is it something you remember having as a kid, but you just kind of lost it along the way in the grind of society?
I don't know if I can actually like pick up that feeling and experience it now, for example. Like we have been talking about in the last episodes and outside of the Zoom, I'm very self-critical. And now with this family dynamic that doesn't work so well, I start to doubt myself and like thinking that I'm a bad person and stuff like that. And that
Yeah.
connects to the things that we were talking about with the dynamics with narcissists. You know, so it was really helpful to talk to you about that because you know when you start doubting yourself because you're being treated in a bad way, uh,
Yeah.
and then you start maybe I'm the one that communicates badly. I should have accepted what they said. I should have like done everything differently. And then you said there's never a reason to yell at people and talk down on people
No.
or blame people or be transactional in a mean way,
Yeah.
not caring
No,
about how you feel at all.
like I did this 15-week of complex trauma course called Lift from Tim Fletcher, and I can really recommend it to everybody. And it was a bit painful in one way because you kind of have loyalty towards your family, right? And also the course doesn't say like this isn't about making you the victim and making your family the wrong people, but it is very good and useful to acknowledge what is healthy behavior and what is unhealthy behavior. So when I went like through the course, I was like, okay, growing up, like, okay, yeah, I experienced physical abuse. I experienced verbal abuse. I experienced emotional abuse from my mother. And like I experienced physical and emotional neglect from my father. And there was this part of me that says, oh, but these are like professionals. This is not okay to behave. Like you cannot hit children. You cannot just start yelling at children that are 4 years old or get super angry with them because it simply deregulates them. It doesn't do anything but produce damage in the development of children. The only thing they do, what happens is that they feel unsafe and they're gonna develop strange coping mechanisms like people pleasing or freezing or fawning or, fighting or flighting or whatever, but it's not healthy. So whenever people are abusive to you and they kind of talk down on you, that's just not okay behavior. And it is very good to know that because especially if your inner child was used to that, then it's very easy to think, well, that's normal. This is how it always has been. So, and this is also something painful that is kind of an adaptive mechanism of children. Like if children experience unpleasant things, like physical abuse, verbal abuse, sexual abuse, whatever, especially in the first 0 to 8 years when they don't really have the neocortex yet, like children are so dependent on their caregivers. So if their caregivers misbehave, they generally internalize it. Because to say, oh, I shouldn't be physically abused,
Then you're critical to your caregivers and you get
exactly,
cognitive dissonance.
and you can't be without them anyway. So it's like an evolutionary mechanism to just say, okay, it's probably right that I'm being physically abused. It's probably right that I'm sexually abused. It feels really unpleasant. I don't like it. Like your system knows something is wrong, but there's probably something wrong with me, right? And that's where how do you call it? That's where you kind of internalize the abuse from the outside, you turn it inward,
And
and
then you
that
sort
then
of repeat it often, you do the same towards your own family.
exactly, you repeat it both internally and externally. So you kind of often have a very low self-worth because you think it's okay for other people to treat you that way because it's what happened. And because you were treated that way, you think it's okay to treat other people that way as well. And
Yes,
this
and
is
because
like
it's a
how cycles
culture.
of trauma.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a culture. And like I saw this video, I saw this 60 minutes interview with Jeffrey, the girl that was abused by Jeffrey Epstein. And
Yeah.
she said when she had met some healthy people, she understood that what had happened wasn't natural or correct or right. The way she was, because she was abused from home. So these
Yeah.
abusers, they recognize the vulnerability in these girls, and that's the
Yeah.
way the people they go for.
Yeah.
And then they are easier to abuse because they are used to be treated that way. They don't object. So
They're kind of, yeah, it's
we're
super
dealing with
sad.
the culture
Yeah.
internally in families, and yeah, so it's yes, it's sad because the people, and I've observed that also in my childhood years when I grew up, the people that were most vulnerable, like they came from a background with a caregiver that couldn't take care of them. And then, they were also bullied and they were also starting to use drugs. And I mean, what's fair about that? I don't know if
Yeah, it isn't. No.
it diverged from the topic of today, which was about kindness.
Yeah, no,
You
but
know?
it's interesting to go into a little bit, and this is what we learned in the complex trauma. It's like because you experience unpleasant things as a child, you need to survive. So you just internalize it, and if you do survive it, I mean, but first of all, your needs aren't met, right? So you generally don't have the healthy neurochemicals develop if your needs were met. So instead of your brain running on like dopamine and endorphins and uh, oxytocin and there's one more, serotonin. This is what your brain runs on when it's healthy, when your 12 needs are met, your physical needs, your social needs, your relational needs, when they are met, that's what your brain runs on. But if your needs aren't met and instead you feel continuously unsafe, either physically or emotionally or relationally, then your brain starts to run on cortisol and on adrenaline. And what happens is that your system is almost always activated. So your sympathetic how do you call it? Your sympathetic nervous system is always being activated and it doesn't relax because you're always stressed. And because of that, you don't get the normal chemicals. And you kind of get trained like this is what life is. You're actually living on a very unhealthy neurochemical cocktail because your basic needs that every human needs aren't being met, but you're still surviving. But then when you start doing alcohol or drugs, those drugs work on those pathways where you normally would have gotten stimulation if you would have grown up in a healthy environment. So this is why people from complex trauma are much more likely to do drugs because that's their way to finally feeling the
Mm.
good feelings that they didn't get when they were growing up. But in addition, another unpleasant side effect of this is that you were trained in behavior. So as a child, if your parent is abusive, you kind of learn to accept that as okay because it's the only reality you're used to. So you don't learn to discern then if you are in connection with another adult, if they're abusive or not. So you're much more likely to end up, yeah, exactly what you said, like because this girl was being abused by her home situation, she kind of went along with Epstein.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it's very sad. But this is what this course was exactly about. Like, how do you learn to see what complex trauma is? How does it work? How can you meet your own 12 basic needs? Because often people from complex trauma never learn that. And then also, once you deal with a complex trauma and you deal with meeting your own 12 needs, then you can address potential addictions much better
Yeah.
because you already have the healthy hormones being produced by your system. You are learning to deal with emotions better and undo the damage from the complex trauma. You're learning a lot of new tools, and then it's much easier to quit addictions. So
So that's the way of loving yourself. Like if we're back to talking about uh, does mushrooms make you kinder or what is kindness? Could you like go a little bit into what kindness really is? What is it? What does it
yeah,
mean to be kind to another
yeah,
person?
that's a good question. Well, I would say being kind to another person is helping them meet their needs, right? So if you can assist a person in meeting the needs that they have, then in a sense you're kind to them because you're helping them survive and thrive in their lives.
But if they're an
And
alcoholic and you give them alcohol so they can satisfy their needs, are you a kind person?
well, that's a good question. Yeah. And how far do you
Or
go, right? No, no, I think here is where you need to find a balance between empathy and wisdom and how do you call it? Skillful means. But in a sense, like also this is a bit what people maybe don't understand. Like an alcoholic person, um, like they say, like addicted people, like 90% of them have experienced complex trauma, and they've also shown this in these rat studies. Like if a rat is isolated and you give them cocaine and water, they'll just go for the cocaine water till they're dead. If they're in a healthy environment with rat babies and toys and healthy food, they will try the cocaine water a little bit, but the moment they get back to the group, they just stop that because they are getting the neurochemicals from the social interaction that they are trained, that evolution, in a sense, trained them to give rewards for. So, I would say, how do you help an alcoholic? First is to recognize that an alcoholic has found a solution for their problem of not feeling the right neurochemicals, but they weren't feeling healthy because they had complex trauma, because their needs weren't met, and they probably have a lot of maladaptive strategies developed in their life as a result from that complex trauma in youth that makes them not function well as an adult, and so they can't meet their own needs now as an adult, and then they don't get the right neurochemicals, and then they find alcohol, and then they suddenly get the right neurochemicals. So, in a sense, most addicts are self-medicating on stuff we all naturally should feel if we were in a healthy society where we would have our needs met in a healthy way. So
Yeah.
I think the best way to help this person is to go into that, like, okay, what is your complex trauma? How can we help you with this? How can we help you process? How can we help you teach to meet these 12 needs by yourself or ask others for it?
But now and then the person has to ask for help themselves because I have had pushback on, trying to help people that they don't want to be helped. They don't even realize that they need the help. Or, you can't help people that, can you? What's
Yeah,
kind?
no, it's
What
hard
is
to
what's
say,
the
but
kind in
I
this situation where people are not ready to maybe they're not ready to do something
yeah,
about situation. Maybe they're never ready.
no, it's hard to say, and maybe people are just so, they've been so abused and they have developed such ideas and hopelessness about the world that they might never get out of it. But this is a bit of a societal question as well, right? If a person, in a sense, isn't hurting other people, and then if they're respecting the free will and freedom of other people to make their own choices, maybe they can go away with it. I don't know if it's still the healthy thing, but I would like to believe that if you would offer people the possibility to work on themselves, and obviously you can guide them with this, but then I think most people understand that if they're addicted, that they're not in a healthy path and that they probably want to do something different if they're offered a chance. But it's hard to say. It's like sometimes people say it needs to get worse before it gets better, or people need to hit rock bottom, or yeah, if you look at it from a Buddhistic way, maybe people just need the experience and die, and then maybe in the next lifetime they will try something else. It's hard to say, but I think what can we do? I think you can at least offer the help, right? And you're right that you can't force people, but you can at least offer and then see what people want to do. But also, again, you do have to draw boundaries. I don't have experiences with it myself, but what's the movie called about this kid that gets pretty heavy into the drugs, and they can start stealing from you, and like you can love your kids very much, but then if they're really off the path, where do you draw the boundaries? It's not so easy.
It's a complex question. What is kindness? Uh, and narcissists are not very willing to look at their own trauma. I think even the psychologist struggles with narcissists because they're so defensive. They're not interested in looking at the possibility that there might be something they could change, you know? So
Yeah, or maybe they're just so in survival mode that they can't afford to even consider that they could be wrong, because that would be so dangerous to their worldview. Like they feel they're so much under threat already, that they feel that there's so much shame, that there's so much pressure on them to survive, that to even consider that I might be wrong could feel like destruction. So maybe there's so much pressure on them that they can't even admit that. But
I
yeah,
I wonder how mushrooms would work on narcissists though, because that's about tearing down the ego a lot, you know? You sort of don't self-identify as this very important entity anymore. That's sort of one aspect of the medicine, that you see what's important. Like you sort of lose this layer of me, I'm going to protect me and my interests. That's what's most important. And when this is less strong, you see more, you know, the beauty of other people, the beauty of nature, the beauty of, and that's a very useful state to be in. And it strikes me as something the narcissist really would need, you know, just having that experience. And people say that, you know, sometimes these experiences is one of the most important experiences of their life, because they see something.
yeah.
And
Have you
just seeing the truth, I mean, I won't see the truth, but, you know, another perspective on life, it can be, you know, eye-opening. And another thing about like there are many opinions about psychedelics. I saw this documentary by Thomas Seltzer on the TV, and he was like, "Oh, it wasn't that interesting. I don't think this is any point in doing." But then I also read research that shows that the people that have the spiritual experience using this medicine, they, for them it's useful. If you only see fun colors, you don't get into the spiritual space. You don't become religious in a way. You don't, you know, see the larger picture.
have you considered it? Asking your people you're in conflict with to do a mushroom ceremony with you?
I think I asked if they wanted to try LSD, but it never actually, you know. But
Crystallized into
you know, I
something.
don't think LSD works the same way as ayahuasca. You know, ayahuasca is Mother
Ayahuasca is
Nature
better, I
itself.
think.
You know,
Yeah.
and I
I,
think
I think mushrooms or ayahuasca might be appropriate for a family gathering.
it's better because LSD can make you more crazy. I think. I mean, I've read research on
Yeah.
that showing that if you're Nazi, you're just will become even a more stronger Nazi than you used to be. More convinced about your own madness, you know.
How
So
your
I'm
own
not sure about
tribe,
that. I didn't
how
read
your own
the
tribe is the best tribe in the whole world. Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, the research shows that LSD is also helping people with addiction. So I don't know. There hasn't been research on these medicines for 30 years. So I don't know. They're picking it up now. But
Yeah, there's a lot coming
definitely
out, right?
people experience this in different ways, and I've seen it firsthand also on other people that you know, they abuse the substances, or they say I didn't feel anything even though I had the super big dose, and it's impossible that they didn't notice, you know. But
No, but
then all of a sudden they start changing their behavior,
yeah.
but
No, but
they
it is
say
interesting.
they didn't experience anything, but then they go into like this introspection that lasts for a year and they come out completely transformed. But that
Who
nothing to do
knows,
with
right?
the mushrooms.
No, but it's interesting because I have some friends whose parents kind of hit the wall, I guess, or they noticed that like some of my friends changed before, and then they had kind of this, because they changed, they suddenly kind of hit the wall with their parents. But then For some, like a parent was dealing with an alcohol addiction. And yeah, his father was very actually willing to listen. And he did like iboga retreats and started doing yoga and stuff and
Mhm.
meditating because I guess he saw the benefit of it. But I think it's not so common. And I think it can be a blessing if your family members are open to kind of look at their own issues and then try to work through them. And however you do it, like meditation, yoga, getting your needs met, dealing with your complex trauma or psychics. But it would be interesting if people were open to try it out.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Um, I have
But you don't see your family gathering over mushroom tea for Christmas.
I would I would I would participate, but I don't think they are open to that. It would definitely be useful, I think, because you drop your defenses. You know, you let you feel into your emotions, which is really it can be hard. You know, in everyday life, you sort of put the you keep those emotions down. They're too strong. I notice in myself also. I know I sort of repress emotions of even love because they're too strong. It's overwhelming.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I definitely want to. I want to explore this more. I mean, it's like we were talking about in this last episode that you're like your personality is it's like an onion. When you peel away the aggression and the stress, all of a sudden you're sort of more closer to those deep emotions, you know, and they are hard to embrace because it's so deep, you know. You want to cry and you so it's a little it's hard. But useful, I think.
Yeah, and it's also, I mean, this is what it's a lot of these strategies we develop for a reason, right? We learn to suppress our emotions for a reason because it is in I would say it's a kind of adaptive strategy to a maladaptive or unhealthy system. But if we kept our vulnerability, if we kept our authenticity, if we kept feeling all of our emotions, then we wouldn't be willing to participate in a lot of the things that are required of us in mainstream society. So, kind of to survive ourselves, we kind of need to close our hearts. So, we don't see the suffering the system produces. We don't need to confront that because we're already so stressed in the system to survive for ourselves that we don't feel we have the capacity to then try to improve it or make it more human, make it function better for everyone. And maybe because we don't know how to, but yeah, I think it's interesting. And what starts where, right? Like I've also heard from people, for example, that had these near-death experiences that they just totally switched. Like maybe they were in a very corporate job before and they were very into the whole materialism and gather wealth and stuff, just a lot of things. But once they had this near-death experience, they suddenly saw that, oh, wait a minute, what's actually important are my relationships to the people around me, my relationship to the planet, and then they can change careers. So often a lot of switches can happen as well when these things happen. And I always wonder, like, do we get kind of trained by society to be a certain way, or are we a certain way? And this is why we have created the society we're in. Like,
Yeah, what comes
do
first? Yeah,
exactly.
the hen and the egg.
Exactly, and what gets rewarded as well. Like I think if enough people would simply have the shift and say, no, we're just this isn't important anymore. I'm gonna prioritize my relationships. I'm gonna prioritize being out in nature, and maybe I don't need a huge house and a sailing yacht and whatever. You know, it's sometimes hard to say where these things will go.
What you're saying is really, if everyone had, dealt with their complex trauma, we'd see a complete different world and we'd have other world leaders.
Totally,
Yeah.
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 Yeah, and we might be getting there. It's like a bit hard to say, but when I did ayahuasca, I was definitely shown that also as a collective, we are all evolving. So I think more and more people are kind of a lot of people have done the personal development to a degree to the, the in Ken Wilber, his system, the spiral dynamics, we have explored our orange state. So then you can start to care a bit more about other people again, and you can start including minorities, people that have it less than you. You can include nature again, because it's kind of a stage of development. Like once you've lived through one thing, then you can start developing the next one. And yeah, it would be interesting to see if psychedelics or other things can kind of help people psychologically grow up so you can go through those stages quicker.
Yeah. Is this now I'm going to show my books? Wait a second.
Yes.
I should have prepared this better. I've written 2 books about this. Anyways.
The one was
Um,
upside down, the blue one, I
oh,
think.
the blue
Which
one
one
was
is that?
upside down. It's
Yeah,
about our current
nice.
system and why it is not sustainable to continue the way we do. Yes. Um, Sustainability and
Yeah,
kindness towards nature, because we are dominating nature. We don't care about nature. We don't care about the needs of nature. So we are in a narcissistic relationship with nature. Would you say that's, would you?
yeah, that sounds like a great summary, actually.
We're like
Yeah.
the narcissist, and it's going to take us down eventually, you know?
It is. It's like the same if you behave as a narcissist towards your children don't want to be in connection with you anymore, like, right?
Yeah.
And it's the same. If we keep abusing nature, then after a while, nature will probably be like, I'm checking out, guys. You guys
Yeah.
solve it by yourself. And then you get ecosystem collapse. It's not good. Like we are part of a whole system. So disrespecting part of that system, I mean, I think,
Abusing
yeah.
nature, abusing other animals. The only animals that are left are dogs,
Yeah.
like elephants are almost extinct, and all the other big elements that's close, sort of a nuisance to us, like bears and wolves. They're not useful to our egotistical needs.
Yeah, so then it's interesting to ask a question, and I think there are some answers like food forests and permaculture, but I don't know what you found. What did you find any solutions? Did you look into it? Where do you feel the solutions are to have a more healthy relationship with nature, where we take care of the needs of nature more as well?
Yeah, and I want to answer that question, but before we end this episode, I also want to talk a little bit more about what does it mean to not be kind and what does it mean to be kind, because we were talking about giving that alcoholic that beer bottle. Is that kind, and or is it unkind? I mean, and is it real kindness to open people's eyes to the abuse that is going on, or is it like kind to just give them what they need, what they think they need to appease themselves? So what I have written about is more that we need to be we're so atomized, we're so fragmented. We need to find each other, back to each other. We need to, like, instead of being fragmented and competing against each other, we have to come together and work for a more sustainable, socially and environmentally sustainable system together, instead of working against each other. And I've talked about this in like city development. We need
Yeah.
meeting places. We need more community-oriented city planning. We need, and then I'm sort of going into how can we do that and how will we think and how can we organize ourselves differently to obtain that.
Yeah.
And then in the other book, I'm talking about how can you as a person and as an organization think differently. So it's, of course, I don't go into the inner work that we have been talking about, which is super important, because if you don't do the inner work, everything's going to be corrupted. Like you see today, like we have the system of like the sustainability goals turns into green growth. It's a new
Yeah.
business opportunity, and it's as damaging to nature as anything else. You know, almost at least, you know, so a little bit better. But that was the thing that we were going to talk about. If you really care for nature, then you have to you use less electricity. Don't use like produce more to use it on these data centers, for example. It's just an excuse to continue your addictive behavior, your addictive consumer behavior.
Yeah.
So the other book is about start with yourself. Start with you and your own organization. Then collaborate with other people, find the people you need to do something actionable, and then do it, and then show what you've done to inspire others. That's sort of the short version of it.
Yeah.
So
No,
like
that makes sense.
one of the books is, you know, how does it look? Why how did we get here? And you know, how can we think differently in terms of public procurement, in terms of city development? And then the other book is how can you do it more practically?
Yeah.
Yeah. And now
Yeah.
I'm very interested in, I think, you know, being social and, you know, the spiritual truth that we're all one. Finding back to the spiritual truth that we're all one, seeing the other, namaste, you know, you are me.
Yeah.
Instead of being disconnected and competing and putting each other down. I feel, you know, these are it feels a little bit not as practical, but it's really super practical. You have to work on your intention. If you're
Yeah.
working on your intention, that my intention is that you're going to feel good, then I feel good, you know?
Yeah.
On the other hand, you have the problem of are you going to give the wine bottle to the alcoholic? Does that make him or her feel better? Yeah, definitely. So it's more
Yeah. Yeah.
complicated than that, you know? So maybe you want to say something like now that we are close to the end of this episode, what is kind and what is not kind?
Yeah, I
In that
think for me, if I but then like I studied biology, so I'm gonna go back to that. Like if we go from the idea that all living things want to kind of survive and thrive, and to do that you have needs that need to be met, then I think kindness is, and this might sound very kind of business-like, but basically it means getting needs met of yourself, the people you care about,
my need is to
the
have
tribe you
2 liters of wine uh, consumed every
No,
day.
well, that's not the real needs. Like if you look at Maslow, it's much more, I would say that addiction almost always is an replacement for real needs being met. And this became very clear in this course of Tim Fletcher for me. Like if I don't feel connected to other people, if I don't feel I have something valuable to add to society from my own authenticity, from my own creativity, I feel bad. And to cover up those bad feeling things, if I take alcohol, suddenly instead of getting those neurochemicals through being authentic, through being creative, through being, how do you call it, adding value and being seen and respected and being in relationship with other people, if I don't have that, I don't have the neurochemicals that come with that healthy need being met. Because I don't have that, the moment I drink alcohol, I suddenly get the chemicals met that I was missing. So I think if you replace the bottle of wine with the real underlying needs that are unmet, I think you can help both those people and society at large.
But how can
But
I take like we're talking about a person that's addicted to alcohol. It could be addiction to ultra processed food, or addicted to yelling, or addicted to anything. But
yeah,
or addicted to shopping or
yeah,
gaming. But how can I, I see this person and I'm like, okay, I think you are gaming or drinking because you don't get your needs met.
yeah.
I don't think they're going to respond very positively because,
Well, you could try it out. I mean, I think maybe if you force it on them, but maybe if you ask them like, hey, are there any needs that you feel aren't being met? And the thing is, we aren't really trained in this way, but it's a bit strange. Like if you look at the zoo, in the beginning when we had zoos, we would just put animals in a little iron cage and they would become very unhappy and dysfunctional. And then we learned that, hey, why is this happening? Well, because these animals aren't getting their natural needs met. So what we started to do is we started to simulate nature in zoos so that these animals could get their needs met in a better way, and they actually became happier. But the thing is, we don't really consider that humans are very much like animals and we are social animals. So we have a lot of kind of social emotional needs. We grew up tribes. That's how we evolved for, hundreds of thousands of years. So now that we live in a society where everybody is, in a sense, if you look at it from the capitalistic system, we're kind of on one way we're cooperating, but it's always this feeling that you're in competition with everybody. That's not a very natural way for
makes us
humans to be
unhappy.
in.
Mm.
Exactly. And this is because it doesn't meet our social needs. It's actually abusing. It does the opposite. So you could say that and this is like the book Mate wrote, right? Like, and some philosophers have said as well, it's not a measure of health to be well adapted to a profoundly sick society. And I think if we go back to recognize what does it mean to be human and what needs do humans have, and this has been clear, like Maslow or Tim Fletcher's 12 needs, so there's different models for that. But I really believe that the answer is there because if people their needs are being met, they generally become happier, they become more aligned, there is less desire for addiction because they get their needs met in a healthy way. So their brain makes the neurochemicals that they need
And
naturally.
and we should also talk about, I don't know if you have the time, but our needs is definitely being social.
Exactly.
Yeah,
There's a
yeah,
lot of emotional and social needs. And
yeah, yeah.
and especially in the Western world, like generally, like our generation, materially, almost all of us had food, had a roof over their head. There are some exceptions, but I would say 90%, 99% of the people had their materialistic needs met. But a lot of our emotional needs weren't met. And I think if we start looking into that, because a lot of dysfunctional behavior and a lot of kind of narcissism or extreme behavior towards other people comes from people not feeling seen, not feeling respected, feeling that they can be themselves. So a lot of those emotional needs have been neglected or needed to be shut down because they were punished growing up. And again, if those needs aren't met, you'll generally end up being very unhappy because just like a tiger, if you put a tiger in a box where it can't express its true nature, it's going to be unhappy. And it's the same for a social animal like humans. If we can't be authentic, if we can't be vulnerable, if we can't show all our emotions, if we feel connected to other people, if we can't feel we have a role and a contribution to make towards other people, we're always gonna feel unhappy because this is how we evolved.
Yeah. So what I hear you say is that it's not enough to be social, it has to be a healthy social environment. I really would love
Absolutely.
for us to talk about this in the next episode. What is needed
Oh,
on the
let's do that.
societal level, and because now we've been talking about, the micro is our own subconscious and our own psychological needs, but maybe next episode we could go one step up and talk about what is needed on a more collective level. For example,
Yeah, I would love that. That would be great.
politically, in city development, place development, and the way we organize society. I would think that would be super important. But like one last question before we end this episode, and that is,
Yeah.
okay, so I have understood now that, giving this alcoholic alcohol is not the solution. That's not kind. Because it's about this person not getting their needs met. But then I still struggle to see how I can help this person if the person is not at the stage where they have realized that, they have to do something about their person. That is not, because sometimes people with different addictions or different behavioral patterns that are not healthy for them or others, they blame others. They don't,
Yeah.
yeah. So they won't be very positive if I am telling them that, listen, the reason why you are yelling at me or is because you don't get your needs met, and let me help you. It's never going to work.
No, but you could ask sometimes, like, is there something you need, or is there something you want to tell me about your life that I think to be
Yeah.
curious and compassionate are probably the two
Ah.
the two entrances. But even then, that might not be enough.
Mm.
But you can always ask, like, hey, what's going on in your life, or what happened? Like, how did you get to be where you are now, and how is it to be where you are? And is there anything you feel I could do for you to make it a bit better?
Wow, that's such good advice. For me, at least, because
Yeah,
I'm just, I'm very in as a like coming from that same place in the family. I'm very much in my own bubble.
yeah,
We are none of us are very good at seeing how other people are doing. We're a little bit self-absorbed. So
yeah,
yeah, that was really good advice. Thank you. I'll
yeah.
actually
No, you're
try to
welcome.
apply that advice and see what happens.
Yeah, yeah. I'll
Why
ask.
didn't I come up with that myself?
You could start with your family.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But thank you for a great conversation, and
yeah. Likewise.
let's continue the
Let's.
conversation about
Yeah,
the societal level in the next episode. Bye.
sounds great. Bye bye.